extremely excited to be here. This is a program, University of South Florida, that I'm very familiar with from just coming up as a coach's kid and where I went to school. That's when USF had made that jump a little bit a few years before, and then they came into the Big East, and so I got to see them when Grothy was out there, and you had all those guys, Mark Dan, all those kids, all those guys playing, and Coach Levy did a great job with this program. So kind of seeing it from the past, and where I was at, we knew every time you played South Florida, you were in for a dogfight. You had guys that played hard, played with an edge. They're very proud to be South Florida Bulls. So extremely thankful for Coach Scott giving me this opportunity, and I was extremely happy where I was at alma mater. Just had a bowl game, and day after the bowl game, got a phone call and said that there might be an opportunity. And so, and again, knew of Coach Scott, didn't really know him, but here's what I did know. Like, I knew that from the football on this field aspect, what he's been able to produce as a position coach, then as a coordinator, was at an extremely high level of production. And somebody that I always watched. Like, I would always take time to watch different teams, and it was all in the same family of offense that we had ran. And Clemson was one of those teams. And his players that had made plays, and then when he got transitioned to a coordinator, and obviously from a schematic standpoint, very familiar, stole a lot of stuff, to be honest with you, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So knew of that aspect, but the other thing too, after really trying to get to know him in a short amount of time and his family, and then we were kind of in the same circle, but we didn't really connect the dots just yet. This family of offense they're all related, but there's cousins, and every cousin is a little different, right? And so when I got to know Coach Scott, this is one thing I do know, like, not only from the on-field production was it something I had admired, but how he is off the field as a coach, as a mentor to his players, how he runs a program. I wasn't going to leave where I was at to go to a situation that wasn't going to mirror or be the same or better than where I was at. And if there's any pillar in college football, in my opinion, about how a program can be run the right way in today's world on both sides, both on-field and off-field, that's Clemson. And what Coach Scott's done here, the environment, the locker room. When I came to the first team meeting, I already knew I made the right decision, but when I came to the first team meeting, I saw the coaches interact with the players, the genuine excitement and the relationship aspect, because it's all about relationships nowadays. To be a part of that and to know that that's the environment I want to be in, both on the field and off the field, it was a home run, no-brainer opportunity for me in that aspect, not only professionally, but also just from the quality of life standpoint, if that makes sense. But that all goes back to the leadership that he has, that he produces for our program, and all the way to the top with Michael Kelly saying all, and from that alignment too, was really big for me. So extremely grateful and excited to be here for that, but then also be able to come in here and like I said, I kind of alluded to as the family of offense. It's I was at Stanford University, and I was GAing at Florida State, and there's another GA at Auburn University that had just won national championship named Rhett Lashley. And we both got hired at Stanford at the same time. He was a GA and I was a GA. We got hired by Coach Pat Sullivan, one of the greatest human beings of all time. And Rhett went from GA to coordinator, and I came from GA to position coach, and I worked with Rhett there. And there's only a couple of coaches that ran that offense. That's why Rhett got that opportunity from GA to be a coordinator at FCS. And it was the Gus Malzahn offense, and then Coach had been part with Chad Morris at Clemson. Those were the two offenses, like really the only two people running that family of offense. Then after a year, Rhett had an opportunity to leave, and I got to be the coordinator at Stanford and took off from there. So literally every week I'd be sitting there watching two teams. I really went to three teams. I'd watch Clemson, I'd watch Auburn, then I would watch Arkansas State, because that's where Coach Malzahn went to at that point in time. So it's just funny how things work, and when the opportunity came up to kind of get back to my roots and my core, same belief system, because it's all the foundation of what you try to achieve. And that's what I'm excited to be back part of, and be able to be in a room with, first off, a great staff. That's the first thing, who you're working with. We got a phenomenal staff of assistant coaches. I knew two of them, other two I had heard of, did not know. I've got to know they've been phenomenal, and our players have been great. I got them before I said yes. I watched every game, watched a bunch of cut-ups, and just wanted to see where we're at and how much growth potential do we have. So after taking all that into consideration and My wife, because as soon as I got done watching film, and I came back, I came down and I talked with Coach Scott. I got on the phone with her, and she's like, "We're moving, right?" I'm like, "Yep, we're moving." So, you know, but hopefully moving for the last time in a long time, as y'all right, and it's for sure going to be the last time in a long time because right now this housing market down here is a whole nother level. So, yeah. So, anyways, but like I said, excited to be here, excited to get going, and again, turn it over for any questions.
What do you believe in offensively?
Offensively, I believe in the one thing, the beauty about this offense, again, everyone talks about tempo, yes. I think nowadays we want to play fast, and by playing fast, it's not just like speed of when the ball's snapped. It's your kids knowing what to do and how to do it, and then playing fast, right? And so that is a big aspect of what we do. The other thing is, I do believe nowadays there's a little bit of a changing of the tempo is almost an advantage too. So being able to go at a certain tempo, then increase, then maybe stop real quick and kind of change, keep them all balanced. Because defense coordinators now, back in the day, back when I was in college, we were with Coach Rodriguez, and it was spot the ball, spot the ball, spot the ball, and it was different then. Now everyone does it, right? So that's been a little bit of a change over the last few years, I believe. But the one thing that I do 100% believe is it's Jimmy's and Joe's, it's not X's and O's. So we talk about allowing your players to play fast, but also get your players the ball and what aspects of it. So you identify what they do best, how they do it, and then highlight that. What ways can we get this guy a touch? What way, if this guy's really good at going this way, what can we do to highlight that in a matchup that is in our favor, schematically and both personnel-wise? So I really believe in that aspect with the core of what we do. So again, without getting into specifics, because you know it's a competitive advantage right now that no one really knows what we're going to do. So, but from a belief standpoint, I believe in, again, identifying what your players do best, highlight that, especially whatever is the weakness of what they do on that other side of the ball. But whoever your best players are, do what they do best. Give them the ball in space if they're space players. If they're road graders, get them downhill. If they're guys that are fast on the perimeter, get them on the perimeter. And just let your players play. That's the big thing. It sounds simple, but if you can equip your kids to be able to go out there and know what to do, have a plan, and not think, then that's when they're their best selves. Because there's so many kids nowadays that are 4 stars and 5 stars where they go to a place and they don't play or play well. Well, why is that? There's a number of reasons. Maybe it was a misevaluation, but a lot of times they're thinking. So you gotta find and identify what kids can. Some kids can analyze, some kids can't. But if we got a kid that can be, hey, I don't know if he can do this, but I know he can do that. Well, let's take advantage of that aspect. If that makes sense.
Travis, you watched film and cut-ups, and I presume when you watch it, you probably said, these guys are close. What's the one thing that's kept them from getting over the hump from what you've seen?
Well, I think Coach alluded to it. You got a lot of really young players. When you start a true freshman quarterback, that's tough sledding, you know. And that's what. So when I watched it, I'm like, okay, where are we at, and can we get somewhere without changing the pieces? Because everybody, the quick thing is to say, oh, well, we just got to get a new guy here, but we got to get a new guy there. Well, that's not how it works. This ain't NFL where you just cut and replace aside. So even though nowadays it's getting more and more like it with this portal and all that kind of stuff. But that being said, I'm watching, I'm like, oh man, well, it's just a little thing here or it's just a little thing there. Man, if he can just do this. And so I started making notes. I did a quarterback evaluation on both quarterbacks. I watched a point of attack cut up on each of them. There's some systems out there, PFF, that allows you to do those kind of things. And then I watched all the stars PFF, point of attack tapes. And then I watched the games, right? And just making notes from a schematic standpoint. Okay, yeah, that's okay. I can see there's the family involved. There it is, right there. Saw that. And then, but then also look from like our schematic standpoint, because everybody, like, there's some concepts that everybody runs, like from a run game standpoint, from a pass game standpoint. Well, what's the difference between Team A and Team B? They both play Team C, but Team A does it better than Team B. Well, it's how you do it. And I'm a firm believer in how you do anything is how you do everything. And so to answer your question in a roundabout way is it's attention to detail. That's going to be this big thing about spring. You know, we got 3 goals on offense. One is protect the ball. One is play with perfect effort. And one is have elite ATD, which is attention to detail. Those 3 things have nothing to do with talent. Not a darn thing. So whoever we have that steps out there on the field, at left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, right tackle, quarterback, any position, if they do those 3 things, we can maximize who they are as a player. then it's up to us schematically to put them in position to be successful. So to me, it's, all right, if we're running a certain play, what's the detail in that play that did get executed, that made it work? Highlight that, continue it, and then what's the detail in that play that maybe, man, that kept it from going? And now, are there certain details that show up over and over again? Okay, let's set it again. All right, so if it's this, maybe it's a combo here, or maybe it's a release here, or whatever it may be. Then you put a plan in place. Okay, that's the issue. How do we fix it? Okay, how do we drill it? How do we implement it? And then how we stay on it, so then you get your kids better. So to me, that's what I'm most excited about, is really getting our team and our players detail-oriented. Our coaches are there. They've been phenomenal. Our players have been great in this short amount of time of meetings. So the meetings are very small and quick. But in that time, they're very, very eager. Coaches hit it on the head, nail on the head. Our team is very, very eager. They want to do good. They want, and again, some places you go and different kids nowadays, they think they're this, they're that. And hard to coach them sometimes because their cup's already full. Like, they don't want to get, you pour into it and they're like, no, I got all the answers, coach, I'm good. Our guys have been phenomenal from top to bottom in every position. So that's what I'm really excited about this spring, is just really being process-oriented, detail-oriented, and throw them out there and see what they can do.
When you decided to come here, how much of a factor was it that it been more into a team that really hasn't been successful for juniors?
Because, like, in our profession nowadays, it's like patience does not exist a lot of times. It doesn't. I mean, Frank Beamer nowadays, from when he was at Virginia Tech, I don't know if he would have made it past year 2 or 3. It took him, I think, year 4 or 5 when they started having success, and then they hit, right? And so, and this is a coach's kid coming out of me, because y'all know, as a coach's kid, you're like, you know, we were at Auburn, and they let go of Terry in 1998 after game 5 or 6. We were 47-17-1. That's the first thing I said. Like, we're 47-17-1. They're letting them go. Like, what are we talking about? And that's just, and again, that being said, that you don't know as a kid, you know what I mean, as a child, you just kind of say, as a coach's kid, you're like, well, why? That doesn't make any sense. But when you come to a situation and you see the alignment, you know, I knew I was at a place where the alignment was 100%. And I've been fortunate enough the last couple stops to be at those spots, and you see where those programs, when they have that, the success that can have. And it may not be immediate, but the foundational success that's long-term and sustaining. So that was the number one thing, to be honest with you, because I knew of Coach Scott, knew he was a quality man, quality coach, knew of his family, pedigree, everything was there. South Florida had my full respect from the jump, even from a recruiting standpoint, because that was the only interaction I dealt with, but also from a football standpoint. But then when I got down here and I met, you know, Michael Kelly, met, you know, Coach Scott, and then I really met everybody in the facility, and not only like just talking about it, but doing it, the facility, you know, making sure coach is secure. We go into those homes and tell these kids, like, hey, this is it. And so that was everything for me, absolutely everything. So that's a great question, but and it's felt in the program. The kids feel it now. Nowadays, I mean, with social media, that's real, and so the buy-in, that's why the vibe around this building and that locker room and upstairs is really, really good right now.
Obviously, from a wins and losses, this doesn't look like the most desirable position. But when you take a deeper look, especially what you've got offensively and the weapons that are returning, this is probably one of the most desirable jobs in college football. With your entire offensive line returning, your quarterback returning, most of your skill positions returning, just as you kind of studied and looked at things from a personnel standpoint, just, you know, how giddy were you when you realized what you had to work with?
Well, first thing you look for is like, I remember one job I took, I walked out there for spring practice and got the guys on the team, there was a bunch of guys standing on the sideline that were like this tall, this big, that I'm like, what's going on, dude? I mean, they're like, oh yeah, I just graduated. Like, they didn't look anything like that was out there on the field. I tell you this, it's really exciting. That's also the thing where that's the first thing I did when I got here is I tried to meet one-on-one with as many players offensively as I could. And that's you know, Coach Scott builds a relationship-based program, right? And because nowadays that's how you got to coach. You got to be relationship-based. That doesn't mean being soft. That means they got to know you for you, not just coach, but as the man, as the family, as the husband, as the father. And that's the culture that he's already put in place. So I make sure like these first few days, I'm sitting down, I meet with as many running backs, tight ends, receivers, offensive linemen, quarterbacks that I can. Took the quarterbacks out for breakfast for the occasional meal the other day. Going to do another dinner before spring ball or sometime during spring ball. I think you need to spend time. It's expensive. You know, it's really expensive as far as like taking away from your family. But they've got to know how much you care before they care how much you know. You know what I mean? That's a big piece I do believe in what you do. And that takes time, that takes effort. Like right now, our offensive coaches are meeting with all our players one-on-one, going through spring goals, the outlook, because Coach Scott talked about competition is real. And so we want them to have a sense of hope, a sense of like getting excited about being developed and being coached. And the good thing is we got a lot of guys come back. And that could also be a double-edged sword because then there's only be so many reps because you may be a little thin at this position, a little thin at that position. So you can't do maybe 2 spot this or 2 spot that. But it's all about as long as they know they're getting better, get developed. That's a key thing. But I'm excited watching the tape, see guys that jump off the tape that you get really excited about. And then also the guys that you know maybe you're recruiting out of high school or guys that you watched they had flash here and flash there is, okay, why did they flash and can they continue flashing? Can we build on that? So very desirable in that aspect. And there's work to be done. Don't get me wrong now. It ain't like, oh, it's like it wasn't enough, right? And so we got to make sure we got to do what we can to make it enough and develop that aspect.
What's
What do
been
you
the
think you can
overall?
bring- oh, sorry.
Sorry, no, just wanted to follow up. What's been the overall response that you've gotten from the guys that you've gotten on
Awesome.
with?
They've been great. They've been so willing to they just want to get better. I do think a lot of that has to like they gotta know that you want to get better, but you got, and that's the thing. Like you can't just come in there and start yelling out. Like that does not work today. And I talk to my dad all the time about that because if y'all know anything about my father, he is a yeller. And but like I told, and he agrees. Like he's at an age now where he understands it. But it's you gotta really to push kids. They gotta know that you got their back. And so the only way and again, now that means like if they're doing something not standard, you getting them there is actually for them. So being well defined with them, spending time with them, that's been really big. But that's why their reception has been so good because they want to be better. They know so far at this point in time that I care about them, but that's more time has to be spent because I've only been here for about 2 months, right? So, but I think a lot of that has to do with the culture too. The culture's been set in place. They understand it, that Coach Scott's not going to bring anybody in here that's not to that mentality or standard.
What do you think you can bring to the development of quarterbacks? Coach mentioned that's one of your fortes. What can you do to get these guys further along?
Yeah, the number one thing is just being consistent. You know, Coach Wise, who's here, is a great coach, a great young coach, and has a track record too of his short time, you know, being a coordinator, has been very successful. So he did a great job with them as well. The one thing I actually say to bring to the table is just trying to understand, like, hey, simplify. We talk about players playing fast. All right, well, the quarterback position, like, some players have to make decisions. All right, they know what route they have to run. Now it's just how do I run it based on what I'm getting. Or maybe it's a block where I know I have to take my inside zone steps, but it depends on if I got 3 technique here or 5 technique here or where the linebacker's at. Quarterback's got to say, I've got to make decisions, but it's dependent on a lot of different aspects. There's a lot more decisions that probably have to be made. So being very fortunate to my upbringing, being around some coaches that have been very complex offensively, and then some other coaches that have been very honed in. I won't say simple because that's not the correct term, but more very, very, very efficient with what they teach. And then finding that happy medium, and then learning a kid, find out how he learns, how much he can handle to let him be successful, and then really just getting to know them and then shave it down to where if they can see a little, they see a lot. So whatever that is, like on this play, they just need to focus on this thing to that, then that play can go at a high level. You follow me? So it's really just honing them in, detailing them up, and then really hopefully making their options where they know, like, I'm going here and being decisive. So making them more decisive and making sure as a coach I'm putting them in that position schematically and also decision-making wise. So then they can go out there and do the best. And then if they can handle a little bit more, they can handle this and that, then we'll give them more. But right now, it's started like Coach Scott said, that basic level, that foundational level, and then build off of it.
Coach, you mentioned Pat Sullivan earlier. In your career,
in getting to this point? Can you cite a couple of individual